I'll see you soon enough. I'll have my helmet and chin strap on, ready for all your questions.
Thanks, Aaron. All the best. John, in the annals of equal time, we did have the Mets manager, Carlos Mendoza, on the show last week. So Aaron Boone of the Yankees is joining us this week.
Yeah, I appreciate your browbeating him until you got him to come on the show once again. Now he's very cooperative, and it couldn't be any more cooperative than Aaron Boone, and he's a
I think he'd
terrific
agree with
guest.
you that I browbeat him, though.
No, I appreciate it. I didn't want to do it, so I appreciate that you did it. He was going to come on anyway because he's a nice guy, and I'm anxious to hear everything he has to say about the Yankees. They are running it back, and we'll see whether what he thinks of that.
Yeah, we'll ask him about running it back. We'll ask him about the one of the guys they did bring in, who was Ryan Weathers. We'll ask him for his early thoughts because he's already down in Tampa. We'll ask him a lot more. John and I will try to sum up the off seasons of the Mets and Yankees and what we think of them. We'll play hit and error at the end if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, a week from today, when we're doing our show next, we'll both be in Florida on different coasts doing this because spring training will have opened. So that means it's not that anybody's done with their work. As we know, these New York teams are going to go right to the August 3rd trade deadline. It is August 3rd this year, not July 31st, where they're trying to improve their team. And that will include the next week in spring training as well. But it feels like most of the heavy lifting is done. So therefore, it feels like we can talk about how the offseason went for the two New York teams. John, why don't we start with the Mets? Go ahead, you go first. They
Yeah.
obviously did a lot of core guys out, and just they changed about a third of the roster of significantly. What do you think about
Yeah,
where they are?
I mean, they remade the team. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. I mean, the fans were disappointed. It's pretty clear what the front office thought at this point. They didn't want that team back, right? Agon or Alonso and McNeil and Nimmo, even Diaz. I think they were expecting to keep Diaz, but they're all gone now. The team is really going to change over. Perhaps that's a good thing, but let's not forget in 2024 they had a great run, magical even with those players and did well. I guess this was all fresh on everybody's mind, and it's probably good when you make some changes when a team collapses like that. And that was one of the slowest collapses I've ever seen, right? It took 4 or 5 months for them to not make it. They were in front in mid-June. They had the best record in baseball and still didn't make it to Cincinnati. So I can see why they're very disappointed. I can see why they made big changes. I'm still not sure why Diaz isn't there. I like Bichette. Simeon is a terrific defender. I do think their defense will be a little bit better. I think they absolutely needed to get an ace. They did do that. So generally, I like what they did, but it is very interesting that they really, really reacted strongly to the finish of 2025.
John, just for our viewers and listeners, you were on the Met collapse so much before I was last year. Anytime we had a conversation, I just kept saying, "Come on, they're going to make it." I mean, John, I went to they were
Well, you know why that was, right? Because that website who rates what the playoff percentages are had them at 97% when they were playing horribly.
yeah.
So I was like, it was more about the math than I didn't believe in the team. It was like 97%. I've been watching, and I was with the Mets more than you were happen to be with the Yankees more. And they didn't look good at the time, but I didn't think that they were. I thought they'd still probably make it. But I just didn't believe that it was 97%. Then it went down to 91%. I'm like, 91%? This team isn't doing very well. So it
Yeah.
was more about the math. So I'm not taking any baseball credit on that. I just don't think the math. What was that Fangraphs? I can't even
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
It wasn't
really.
about the math for me, John, as much as it was about the Reds. I was like, aren't they going to finish at least a game better than the Reds? Like they're just
Yeah,
like on
that was.
paper, they are significantly better to the point where I think they were losing the last game of the season 4-0. You were in Miami. I was in the press box in Yankee Stadium watching the Met game, and they were losing 4-0 in the ninth. And Ronnie Mauricio, I think, led off the ninth inning with a walk, who never walks. And I turned to somebody and said, they haven't won a game all year with a trail going to the ninth inning. I think that this walk is a bellwether, and they're actually going to score 5 runs here and win. And I think in 3 pitches, because there was a Lindor double play in there, I think the season was over. And I was still saying to someone, I know the season's over, but I think they're going to get in somehow because I just couldn't believe they didn't get in.
It
And,
was shocking. It was
and
shocking. You're right. You're right. It was shocking. It wasn't 97% shocking, but it certainly was a surprise that they won 83 games with that roster. It really was.
so now they've done this change to roster, John. And the way I look at it is, I think almost I'm with you, aside from the Diaz for what they did. I think I like every individual move the Mets have made this offseason. My concern is about the Frankenstein monster of it all. Like, generally, teams, like, we don't think of baseball as a cohesion sport like basketball or football, where, you got to know what the pickup is on the traps, or like how to, like, there's a blitz, what's the hot read out of it, etc. Most of it is about the pitcher throwing to a hitter. And yet the teams that generally do so much change in the offseason, where we think they win the offseason because it's famous names and they spend
Right.
money, those teams generally don't have the success we think afterwards. Now, every team whose model I ask about has the Mets as a high 80 win team this year, right there with the Braves and the Phillies to win the division, but they were kind of there last year. But do I like Jorge Polanco? I do. I'm not sure with he's had a lot of lower half injuries. I'm not sure, can he play first base every day? Is he really more a DH? I like Bo Bichette, especially the offense and the grind in the guy. Can he play third base? I'm not sure. I think he can. I like Freddie Peralta. I like the individual moves. My only concern is, how does it all kind of cohere together in a year where kind of Carlos Mendoza has a lot of pressure probably on him to win, and David Stearns has pressure too, but his job is really safe. Mendoza's probably isn't. And it feels like there's a lot of pressure. And I come back to this thing and I wonder what you think, John. They did so much this offseason. A third of the roster is going to completely flip over, and historic players are going to be gone from their team. And I still feel so much of this comes down to Senga and Minaya. Like, I really like what
Right.
Dylan McClain looked like at the end of last season, and I'm a Freddie Peralta fan. But for
I,
their rotation to be really, really deep and good, Minaya and Senga have to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, there are questions up and down this roster. To make a prediction of how many wins they have now, I'm sure Fangraphs will try that, but it's impossible, right? Because Polanco can hit. Definitely a hitter, but he hasn't been a first baseman. He hasn't always stayed healthy. Bichette is a great hitter, but he's never played third. He's also had some injury issues. There are just a ton of questions. Semien is a terrific defender, but he seems to be on the downside offensively. What will he bring? He was about average last year and is, getting toward his mid 30s. There are just so many questions. Can McClain duplicate what he did last year? Can Devin Williams be a closer? The biggest questions, you're right, are Senga and Minaya. I mean, Senga was great 2 years ago. Minaya was great a year ago. And they were both nothing last. They did not. They brought nothing last year due to injury or underperformance, combination, mostly injury, but just a lot of questions. We don't really know what this team is gonna be. I got to be honest, and I see all the great people talking about what a fantastic offseason. It was certainly an exciting offseason, but
Yes, it
is
was.
it better to have Bichette than Alonso? I'm not sure. Is it better to have Williams than Diaz? I don't think so. But, is Semien better than Nimmo? Now I know they play different positions. I don't know. Flip a coin. It's a lot of questions here. They got a lot of youth coming. They obviously built a nice farm system. McLean's terrific. They still have young pieces. Beatty had a great year. I feel a little bad for him. He got moved out of third, then he got moved out of left right after he got moved out of third. But he adapted to second. Can he adapt to first and left and all these other positions he's going to have to play? Just it's a million questions. You're going to the Mets, so you're going to have to answer all those questions. I got the easy job. I'm going to the Yankees.
Yeah.
They have the same team. Maybe it's coming up with story ideas will be easy with the Mets, but I mean, coming up with an idea of what this team is going to be is impossible.
Yeah, Super Bowl Sunday. I'm getting on a plane to be in Mets camp on Monday after.
That's dedication. You're throwing away the Super Bowl for
Yeah,
this.
somebody's got to do it, John. A last thought on the Mets, and obviously, if you have a thought on this, go follow it. I I think the question for the Mets, and I don't know that we'll ever get an honest answer, is like, was this a good plan or was this a desperate plan? Like, did things start to go wrong for them and they just leveraged Steve Cohn's money to be able to do a bunch of things here at the end to kind of get it done. And also in the name of long-term flexibility, which is what Stearns wants. They were very committed to the idea that their cornerstones are Soto and Lindor. We'll be curious how that all looks moving forward also, on and off the field. But like they're very comfortable with the idea of Soto and Lindor as the cornerstones. And then they kind of like didn't want to add years around that. Like they were willing to do short-term money. They were willing to get out of Nimmo. They were willing to not re-sign Alonso. They didn't want to go 5 with Diaz, which would have separated them, or even 4 with Diaz, which might have separated them. So like I think David Stearns believes very much in where their development is, the depth of their farm system, even after the trade for Peralta. I think those were the expendable, they never say it out loud. I think those were the expendable guys in their view, especially because they built up so much middle of the diamond equity. Jet Williams was expendable. But I am curious for those two things. Was this desperation or inspiration? And was clearing the field for the long term really the right thing to do? Because to your point, again, you could play Alonso or Bichette, Diaz or Williams. That all would have cost more years. Should they have clogged more years to do it?
Yeah, I mean, David Stearns, I think, is very disciplined. They did have some wild and crazy moments, or even moves in here. Bichette contract for 1 year where he gets paid $5 million. If he opts out, he's paid to leave. That's one way to do it. Not give the really long deal. They're obviously disciplined about that long deal, unless it's a Soto, a 25-year-old guy on the way to the Hall of Fame, or a Yamamoto if they could have gotten him. So I do admire the discipline. I mean, obviously it's easy to praise the Dodgers right now, but Andrew Friedman started out as disciplined, and then he said, if I'm always disciplined, I'm always going to finish third, and he's free agent. And he said, you know what, I got to win some of these to make a great team. I do think to win the World Series, you have to have stars. These small market teams rarely win the World Series, and sometimes you got to go out of your comfort zone. I mean, Peralta's a guy they know, but he probably is a little out of the comfort zone to give up. I'm sure if you place down the values of Jet Williams and Sproat and the value of 1 year of Peralta, that's probably a loser, to most GMs. But I'm glad to see that he went out of his comfort zone there. They absolutely had to do it at that point. So I think ultimately it came together. It was like some discipline, some crazy moves, and it looks like their team is good. But they've changed the personality of the team, which I still can't figure out whether they don't care about the personality and they just happen to change it, or if they wanted to change it and brought in guys who were tougher. They had a very nice team before. Now you've brought in guys with edge, and I happen to like Bichette a lot. He's got edge though, right? Devin Williams has got edge. Semien has some edge to him, right? Did they do that on purpose? I don't know. Would they tell us? I'm not even sure they would tell us. But this clubhouse is very, very different than, you're not going to have Brandon Nimmo's running around the clubhouse who's, he's like, who's the guy on PBS who's always happy all the time and smiling?
Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Rogers, right. We don't have a lot of people like that in the clubhouse now.
Well, I'll give you a report on that also, John, because this. For high-level players, Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, and Brandon Nimmo were about as easy a guys to deal with for reporters.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just
very nice.
Just great to deal with.
Did they think the team was too pleasant? Do you think that's possible?
I'll give you a report on that starting.
You'll be there. Good.
On the literally the flip side of town, and the flip side, the Yankees stayed very static this offseason. If you count Grisham as a signed free agent, as a qualified offer, they brought back 5 free agents from last year's team: Bellinger and Grisham, Ahmad Rosario, and Blackburn and Yarborough. Their one big move outside was Weathers. At some point, they believe a guy who didn't play for the team last year, Garrett Cole, will come back. They hope by around June 1st and look something like Garrett Cole, which was one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball pretty consistently when he did it. And I would say the other thing they changed significantly is, the guys who came in July will be here all year. And Bednar did what Devin Williams didn't. He was good as a closer from the outset and nailed that down. Duvall pitched well at the end. Ryan McMahon, who swings and misses a lot, plays great defense at third base. They didn't have that all year. And Caballero is going to be their starting shortstop until at least Volpe gets healthy. So they made a lot of changes and in that for guys who will be here all year. I think it looks like a very good team on paper with a chance to have a really great rotation potentially. But I worry about that rotation because there's also a volatility to it about guys coming back from injury and who Ryan Weathers is and who Luis Gil is. John, what say you about where they are?
Yeah, I mean, the changes they made, the big ones were at the deadline last year, and they made good changes. They're running it, to use a cliche, they're running it back. I usually hate it when teams run it back. I don't mind it this time because you're going to have Cole will be back pitching maybe around June 1st. I guess that was when Stanton was coming back to right around Memorial Day last year. So you're gonna have Cole back. You're gonna have Schlittler for the whole year. More about Rice, and he's going to be more of a full-time player starting the season. So even though they're running it back, there's a lot of positives, and there's a lot of reason to feel very good about this team. They won 94 games, so I kind of get it. I didn't, I hate to beat this, and he doesn't deserve this because he had a very nice year. In fact, he hit the most home runs of any center fielder. I didn't get giving the qualifying offer to Grisham, but he did have a nice year. Do we believe that that's him and he's going to do that again? They obviously must think that there's a good possibility of it, but look, they were a good team. They won the same number of games as Toronto, and Toronto came within a whisker of winning the World Series. So I don't blame them. They do have a great rotation potentially, and I think they're in good shape.
I think both Toronto and the Yankees won one more game than the actual champions. I think the Dodgers won 93 last year.
But the Dodgers don't try. They don't need to try. They can, they throw in they're playing with us, right?
Yeah. Their magic number is already done.
They won. They're in. I saw somewhere it was a 99.2% to make the playoffs. That 99%, that one I believe in. I don't believe the Mets were 97.
I don't believe that 99. I think that's about 100. I mean, they would have to would have to lose 40 guys to.
They're not. That division's not very tough at this point. I mean, it's they're San Francisco, Arizona, San Diego. They're good. They're fine. They'd probably win more than 81 games, but I mean, Dodgers should win. I mean, if they were trying all the way through, they'd win 120 games. But don't bet the over/under on Dodger win because they're not going to be trying at the end of the year.
They're slow playing.
They'll set it up to win the World Series.
Yeah, look, John, I know we have Aaron Boone as a guest, and something he said a lot during right after the season, his after-season press conference. He said it at the winter meetings. He said it recently in some of his other media stuff, is the team was playing well last year, late in the year, and he actually believed heavily in the team. And I think he gets beat up because the Yankees then went and lost in 4 games. And the Blue Jays just had it on them last year. I actually agree with him. I thought the best version of the Yankees was about the last 6 weeks of the season. They were better on defense. They were more dynamic on the bases. They kind of got more whole, and their bullpen got a little steadier. It was a good version of the team. I would argue it was better than the team that went to the World Series last year, the year before.
Yeah.
But they had Cleveland and Kansas City to get through, and they're always, until otherwise, they beat up AL Central teams in the postseason. The Blue Jays, as we saw, probably were better than the Dodgers in the postseason last year. They did everything but win the World Series.
Right, they were better. Their Blue Jays were better. You're right. They deserved it. They outplayed the Dodgers too, and they outplayed the Yankees. They scored 34 runs in 34 innings, an inning. I think Al Steinbrenner pointed that out. They certainly had it on the Yankees. I don't know exactly why, because they both won 94 games. They were equal, in the regular season in terms of wins, but they beat them in the regular season twice in the badly in 2 series, and then in the postseason they destroyed them. I know the Yankees did win a game, but I agree with you. The Yankees were a better team. They ran the bases better. You pointed out the previous year that they had some flaws. They clearly did.
Played baseball a little better last year.
They did a little better. They absolutely did.
Especially the last 2 months. I thought McMahon, for all he can't do, the thing he can do at an exceptional level is defend. And I thought he really transform their defense. John, I don't know. It's a little thing I do when I talk to executives from teams. In fact, literally on the phone today with 2 more teams, I do ask them what their models have Again, it's just their models like the Mets last year, and the Mets won 83 games, didn't make the playoffs. But just so New York fans know, and there was a lot of concern about the two teams all offseason, the Yankees are pretty much at the top of the American League with Seattle and Toronto in every team's model. And after the Dodgers, to your point, all the models have them between like 95 and 105 wins. The Mets are in that next group with like the Braves, the Phillies, like at high 80s, low 90s. So I do think New York fans are going to have two good teams this year as we're kind of sitting here
I,
today.
yeah, we think so. No guarantees. I mean, these models might be like the models that I built when I was in the sixth grade that fall
Yes.
apart. Didn't the Mets model have them winning 91 last year and
Yes,
they won
yes.
83? So
And by the way, had them with 2 months to go as a 97% to make the playoffs. Like these things don't always play out. I guess what I'm trying to say is in an unbiased, as close to unbiased as
yeah.
possible, the non-New York world thinks the New York teams are good, are very good.
Well, they should be. They've spent what are they in payroll, second and fourth or second and third, so they should be good. Yeah, I mean, Yankees are running it back, as we say,
And the
and
Mets
they
aren't.
and they aren't.
Very
We'll see.
diverse what the
We'll
two New
see if
York
that
teams.
works out. I don't know. What do you think? Is it better that they have Bichette than Alonso? They're both great players, totally different kind of guys. Is it better? I don't think it's better you have Devin Williams than Diaz, but
If all that mattered, John, was 2026, I'd rather have Alonso than Bichette. But I'd
mm,
rather have Bichette. If the money doesn't matter to Steve Cohen, I'd rather have Bichette for 3 than Alonso for 5.
well, if they have Bichette for three, that means he didn't do so hot in the first two,
Right.
right?
Well, I'd rather
That's
have
the
Bichette
problem with
for.
that.
I'd rather have. Well,
I
look at
don't
it this
think they're
way.
going to
Even if
Bichette.
you opt
Bichette's
out,
great.
yeah,
Bichette's great. I
yeah.
don't expect him here more than well. They might extend him. Maybe it'll work out. He seemed very excited to be in New York. Maybe he has his usual year and they extend him. So
Could turn out like Alonso and Bregman last year, right? Like they both took shorter deals with
right.
opt-outs after a year, and then they got the bigger money this offseason. Maybe Bichette likes it here, has a good year. It is Steve Cohen, and they turn around and do the 7 or 8 year deal
That's
with
the
him.
thing about the opt-outs. They're often used and to the player, always to the player's advantage, and the player often leaves. Sometimes they just get more money where they are, but it's certainly very positive for the player. Obviously the Mets like that better than those long-term deals,
Yeah.
and they do the math. I didn't do the math, but I wouldn't have minded Bichette on a long-term deal myself. What did Philly offered 7 for 200? He picked this one, so maybe he did his math and found this one better. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, one of the other guys who used his opt out and did much better is Cody Bellinger, who was what so far is the last big move of the offseason for the Yankees. We'll talk about Bellinger and so much more involving the Yankees as they head to spring training with our guest Aaron Boone, who joins us next on the show. John and I are so pleased to be joined by a friend of the program. He's with us at least once every year, usually at about this time of year, the manager of the New York Yankees, Aaron Boone. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us.
You are welcome, guys. Good to see you.
Aaron, look, there's obviously so much to ask you after another off season, just about to begin another year with the highest expectations possible. I just wonder if that's the place to begin with you, which is you. I know you're going to feel good about this team. Why could this team get to the finish line as the AL East champions and more this season, in your view?
Um, well, I felt very strong about that with last year's group. So let me say that. Like, there's been other years where we've, won the division, where we've been really good at times of the year. Last year, I felt like at the end we were really good and we're fairly whole. Obviously we didn't have Garrett all year, and that was a big deal. But we were at the end. I felt like we could go on a run, and obviously we get ousted. So, one thing I'm really excited about, obviously, we've brought back a lot of players that we believe in from last year that were core parts of the team and even accessory parts, guys we brought in at the deadline that were important parts of finishing off last year's team, but with the idea that they're going to play a big role for us this year. And that's the case. One thing I'm really excited about right now, and again, it is February 3rd, right, is our potential pitching depth. What our rotation could end up looking like by the summer months. who could kind of emerge that maybe we're not even thinking of that could be part of maybe part of the rotation, but maybe even part of the bullpen in a key role. So I'm excited about the overall pitching depth that we have that I think is going to give us an opportunity to pitch really, really well, which, at times last year we struggled with that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that rotation. Do you think Schlittler, is he the star that we saw last year at the end? He had about 8 or 9 starts at the end, and obviously that great one against Boston. And also, Kezar, Cole, and Rodon, where do they stand? Yeah, obviously, Cole coming off of Tommy John. It's interesting to see. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball over the last decade. Is he going to be that guy again? Can we know that yet?
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against Garrett Cole becoming that again. And I think we've seen a number of good pitchers, but even Garrett's level of pitchers eventually return to form from Tommy John, even when it's been later in their careers, a lot later than Garrett Cole even. So he's had a good rehab. So I'm expecting good things. You never know how it's going to pop when they first come in that 12, 14, 16 month stage of when it gets all the way back. But I'll place my bets on Garrett Cole all day long. I know he's doing everything to get himself in position to be Garrett again. So, and when that is, it'll be. Carlos, he's throwing a pen here in. I don't think we have any pens tomorrow. So Thursday is Carlos has a bullpen. So I'm looking forward to seeing him as he's kind of really ramping up now and building himself up. Feel like he should be in a good spot fairly early in the season. And as for Cam, look, I don't want to put too much on him. I'm really excited. He threw a live BP today, and it looks like you hope that stuff looks from big honcho righty starting pitchers. So we're excited about that. I think the bringing Weathers in. He's down here too. I got to watch him throw a bullpen today. Like, he's a guy that I feel like could really emerge into something. Luis Heel has had a good winter. So, and obviously Will Warren coming off a full season. And that's just the guys that we expect in our rotation. We do feel like there's a couple others that are kind of knocking on that door and about ready to be a factor. So I'm excited about that depth, and hopefully what emerges of that depth is like competition, and like, okay, this guy then has to collapse into maybe a potentially impactful bullpen role because on some level maybe he's been beaten out in the rotation.
Aaron, look, one of the complaints about the Yankees this offseason is, quote unquote, they're bringing back the same team. Now I want to say I don't fall into that. I think once a guy's a free agent, he isn't on your team anymore. And you have to, if you want him, you got to keep him.
Yeah.
And so, there were 4 of those guys you brought back, notably Bellinger. You didn't have Cole all last year. And I think a lot of teams were trying to get Ryan Weathers. I wonder what you think about the complaint. And by the way, you made a lot of trades in July for players who didn't play on your team last year for the whole year. I wonder when you hear that, what do you think?
Yeah. It all comes down to, it doesn't really matter what I think right now, what the complaints are in the off season, if, or how excited you are. It's February 3rd and we got a long way to go to be good. Like, we're coming with a team that, won 94 games last year. And by the way, it doesn't mean we'll be that good, or, there's so many things to happen still that for you to become a finished product, a finished ball club, and how that plays off. All I can tell you is I'm excited about the piece of clay that we have, the roster that we have, the potential of that roster. It's on all of us to try and go bring it to fruition. And, I think we have a chance to be really good, and we'll get to find out. I mean, it's all talk right now.
We know you're down in Tampa already. I think you sound like you're a little bit under the weather, so you're working not at 100%.
I do?
To me, you do. I don't know. Am
All
I
right.
wrong? Is it your microphone? Uh, but
Oh,
Aaron Judge has been there for a long time, and a lot of your players have been there for a long time. And I think they were seen on TV or something
Yeah.
recently. What does it say about this team that they're so together and so early?
Yeah. I mean, it's been one of the good things the last few years that has really happened a lot down here. And I think Aaron being down here in the winter plays a big role in that. Is we have a number of our guys that have been here for, not weeks, but months. And as I'm here, 10 days really before camp really gets going, we probably have 90% of our guys here. So, and to varying degrees, they've gotten here in the last several days, the last couple of weeks, to again months. So, and I think the captain's gone a long way in helping foster and develop that kind of culture. And I love it. We love it because it allows, especially our pitchers or some of the guys that have dealt with physical things during the season, to have our, player development, training staff, strength staff, pitching group have eyes on them, really building out their programs, getting their buildups right. So, it's been a good thing that's really happened here, really the last few years.
You said 90%. What about that other 10%? Where are they?
They aren't here yet,
All right.
and that's
Okay.
okay because
They're still on time, right?
yeah, in those cases they're not. They're not. We know they're doing what they need to be doing.
Okay.
Aaron, just to follow up on it, because obviously Judge has such a Pied Piper kind of thing where players gravitate to him and have come in early. You're down there, and I know it's fresh. You came down this week, but a lot of people are down there, and they've laid eyeballs on guys. Tell us a guy or two who maybe jumped off the page, like they put on muscle, or they look
Yeah.
coming back from rehabs, or they added a pitch, something that kind of like Yankee fans should know going into next week. Hey, we got our eyes on this guy because X has happened this offseason.
Um. Well, meeting Weathers today for the first time and watching his bullpen, and you see like, wow, the way this guy moves down the mound, the stuff this guy possesses, like, and obviously being highly touted from the draft where he was a top pick. And then, I think in his case, just hasn't had that runway yet, whether it be injuries that have set him back or derailed him. But he's a guy that a guy that you first lay eyes on today and watch him move and watch him throw, you like, I think you could dream big on him, and really being hopefully impactful for us right away.
Rice had a breakthrough last year, and his secondary numbers were even better than his actual numbers. Is he your first baseman? My question about him is he's looked really good as a catcher. On first base, he still looks like he needs a little work defensively.
Uh-huh.
Where do you stand with him on as your first baseman?
Yeah, he took Will Warren over the batter's eye in center field today in the in live BP. So sorry about that, Will, but
He can
he
hit.
was good swing bat. He can really, I think he can really really hit. Like we're talking about legit stud middle of the order bat for a long time. So, and that's how we view him. Um, yeah, it's definitely still a work in progress at first. I thought he did really well there last year. I think having an off season now, he's been down here for probably the last month too, getting all his work in there while still keeping the catching going. Like he caught a bullpen today. He's doing that a little bit, but he is our first baseman, and I would expect him to continue to move the needle. He more than held his own over there last year, but the idea is to get really good over there, and I know he's going to work at it, and hopefully we can continue to get him better.
I think one of the guys who's been down there for a while is Volpe, Anthony
Yeah.
Volpe, rehabbing from his shoulder surgery. I wonder two things, Aaron, if you can give us an update where you think he is in the progression from that, and why. I know you still believe. We've had 3 seasons where, like, especially the offense has never been kind of consistent
Yep.
enough. Why do you still believe that there's an upside of a regular high-end shortstop here?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think he's really talented. Like he's always, obviously a first round pick for us out of high school, kind of got through the system fairly quickly for a high school middle infielder. Hit his way up here, has hit in the big leagues. He's just had a lot of valleys too, to where the numbers aren't, what we expect him to be, what he expects him to be over the long haul. So, and I think this game is filled with talented people where it's not always linear, and it's said a lot, but it's very true. People's journeys and tracks to becoming a finished product are different a lot of times. You want your highly touted guys or guys talked about or high draft picks that get to the big leagues and boom, it just takes off and they're all stars and they run with it. But there's countless examples that that's not always the case. Like we saw Trent Grisham, I think, potentially come of age last year, former first round pick, got to the big leagues, had success, had a lot of struggles along the way too. Like, and I think got a little bit unlocked last year offensively. And those stories exist all the time. You try and, unlock them as quickly as you can. But I think the talent exists for Anthony to become that true two-way shortstop. But time will tell.
And just quickly, where is he on his physical progression? And will he play some shortstop in spring training? Or
Yeah, I would expect him to. He hasn't started swinging yet, so he's in that final phase to where before he starts to hit, getting that last bit of strength in the shoulders, range of motions exactly where it needs to be. Now it's just finishing off and getting that last layer of strength, and then he'll start hitting. Like today, he was out doing his ground balls and all his training. His workouts are normal. His weight training's all normal now. So still, I think a few weeks away from starting to hit.
We're going to go one by one here. This might be more of a question for Brian Cashman than you, but I'll throw it to you. Jazz Chisholm, 30-30, all-star. He did so much last year. Obviously a terrific talent, but reportedly his name was out there. It could be just because it's a year to go before he's a free agent. That be maybe most of it, that may be all of it, but he is a little different in the sense that he's out there talking and giving his opinions on everything. He's not as buttoned up, or is it buttoned down, I'm not sure, as the other players, and he occasionally makes a goofy mistake on the field. Where do you stand with Jazz right now, and would you like to see him become a longtime Yankee? Because no move has been made toward that end anyway.
Yeah. All right. So Jazz got here today too. He's Jazz in great spirits, looks good. Feel like he's ready to go. He's going to play for Great Britain in the WBC. I think he's actually going to play. He might play shortstop for them. So he was actually getting some shortstop work in today. But look, excuse me. Sorry, lost you there. We'll see. I mean, obviously this is his walk year. This is his free agent year. So there's a lot on the line. The reality is, since we've gotten him, he's been incredibly productive. Like, I don't know if it was under the radar or not. It probably wasn't, but like in 2024, like he came to us at the trade deadline at a time where we were kind of at that point in the season where it was a little hard for us. We were scuffling, and he came in right away and changed things and like was impactful right away. We had a huge series in Boston, much on the back of Jazz. Then we went down to Philly and swept them in Philadelphia, and we kind of not saved our season. We went on to win the division, but that was when we kind of righted the ship at a tough part of our schedule, and we got hot on the road, and it was Jazz who kind of fueled that, all the while going over and playing third base and doing that well. So, and then obviously, a 30-30 season last year, and missed about a month, and also didn't run for about a month after he came back. So he's so talented. He's so gifted, obviously. And I love him. We have some interesting talks in my office from time to time. Some, but I think we have a lot of respect for one another. And the reality is, I just demand a lot out of him because he's capable of so much. So he's got a lot in front of him right now, and it's on us to just make sure he's focused on going out there being the best version of himself. And we'll see where it leads as far as, long term or if we take it into free agency.
Another player with a lot of talent, maybe it all hasn't all blossomed, is Jasson Domingues.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, once you bring back Grisham and Bellinger, and you have Judge and Wright, and you have Stanton DHing, it might make sense that you need a righty to maybe complement Grisham, Bellinger moving over to center on those days against lefties. And Dominguez is a switch hitter, and just so far it hasn't clicked from the right side. It's hard to see a pathway how he makes your regular team shape if you have good health, knock on wood. Can he what is the story with Jasson Dominguez right now?
Yeah, so I would first say a lot can happen between now and opening day. So the reality is he's a really gifted player, really talented player that's still in a lot of ways very inexperienced and young, very young in his journey. And last year, I think more than held his own in the big league level. He got 430 plate appearances, and there were times when he was outstanding. There were times, I think really was a big part of of kind of our resurgence athletically on the bases. Like he's gotten really good at, you know, not only his speed allowing him to go first to home and first to third and things like that, but he's gotten really good at the base stealing side of it and highly successful at it. I do feel like he moved the needle defensively and is getting better there. And I don't want to put a ceiling on Jasson Dominguez because he is so talented and he is so young in his journey. So a lot can happen between now and opening day. Obviously, bringing everyone back, complicates things potentially. But my message to him will be to just focus on going out there and being the best player he can be, and trust in the fact that he's going to impact us in a big way this year.
When I was a fan growing up, I loved it when the boss would tell us that it was a failure if the World Series wasn't won. But we all know that's ridiculous, right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Derek Jeter is an all-time winner, and he won 5 times in 2 decades, right? Now you've got a 584 winning percentage, one of the best all time, but haven't gotten over the hump yet. Do you believe that it's a failure if you don't win the World Series? And how much of a burning? I feel like it's a real burning desire of yours, but why don't you tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's probably it's certainly the biggest reason and still one of the only reasons that I'm still at this is I want that championship, and that's what we're all working at. And it's painful, frankly, that um, you know we don't have one yet, and I don't have one yet, and that's the reality. And you understand the expectations that come with this job and being with this organization, and the reality is we haven't been able to finish the job and punch through. So I own that, I wear that, and it's certainly something that constantly motivates me to really get to the top of the mountain. And that's my biggest burning desire in continuing to do this.
Aaron, last year was the first time in a long time where the Yankee bullpen was not an out and out strength of the team. Part of that was like you almost every year during your tenure, and really even going back to Joe Girardi, like there'd almost always be some Clay Holmes, Tim Hill surprise, Jake
Yeah.
Cousins. There wasn't last year. What do you think your bullpen will be better this year? Why? And do you kind of like see anybody on the radar where you're sitting and going, I wonder about if that guy is going to have a breakthrough and really change our arc at all?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Last year, it was just an up and down situation for us in the pen. That again, one of the reasons I felt good going into the playoffs is because I feel like the pen had kind of settled and found itself late in the year. Um, and and in the middle, when we, kind of had that June swoon, kind of June into July where we struggled, where we had a couple tough series with Boston, with Toronto, where we were kind of hemorrhaging a little bit. We had some key guys in the pen that were out. Um, and frankly, I owned a little of that responsibility too, because I was trying to plug in guys that were probably not equipped to handle some different situations, but leaning on them because of their track record to some degree, um, their experience, what they'd done for us a little bit in the past, when, maybe there was some opportunity to take a couple bold steps with a couple unknown guys in some difficult situations. So I think we have a couple of those guys that hopefully emerge for us this year. But also, one of the reasons I'm excited about the pen, even though I don't know some of the names that I feel like might be in there, is because of, as I talked about, the depth of our starting rotation. Hopefully it means that at at some point, one or two guys potentially that you view as starters could collapse into a real meaningful role in the bullpen. But so I think we have a chance to be really good. Obviously, we love what Bednar brings and brought and really stabilized us back there when he came in. Camilo Doval has had a really good winter, and I feel like finished the season in a really good place for us. Obviously, Cruz and Hill. I'm really excited about Brent Hedrick and what I think he can be as now a full-time transition to a pen role. Um, I saw Winquist throw today, who we got in the Rule 5. That's an really exciting arm that could play a meaningful role. So we'll see. The bullpen sometimes is a little bit of an unknown, especially at this point in the calendar. And hopefully we see a couple guys really emerge into meaningful roles for us.
This may just be a crazy theory or idea of mine, but last year you guys played it to the end to try to get that bye, and you won your last 8 games and still didn't get the bye. The Dodgers didn't get the bye either, and they ended up winning the World Series. In all your evaluation, I know you guys evaluate everything, and you've got that 584 winning percentage, haven't gotten over the hump yet. Is that a crazy idea to not worry so much about going hard to the end to try to get that buy? Is that buy that valuable? It seems like
Yeah.
wild card teams have won, have won the World Series. And last year the Dodgers were on a wild card, but they didn't get the buy either, and
Yeah.
they ended up winning. I don't know. Just my thought.
Yeah. I mean, look, just black and white here. I want the buy.
Okay.
Sure, you want that. I want to not play a series that in
All
theory
right.
we just won, you know. And I think it sets you up better. That said, every year's a little bit different in how you chase it down the stretch. Last year was, we weren't doing anything that was exhausting us or, putting us in harm's way necessarily. There are going to be, I'm sure, situations where you're in that kind of back and forth where you're fighting it out for a division and the other thing's the wild card, where maybe you have some guys that you absolutely feel like if you're going to go on a long run here, you need to pull back a little bit. I don't think that was necessarily the case. I mean, we played it straight, and I don't think it was a reason we were ousted ultimately. um and so I think generally speaking, you're going to play and try and get the best position you possibly can. There's always extenuating circumstances that come up in a different year based on where you are as a club, where you are health wise, that can factor into it in a different way.
Aaron, I was asking you about where does Jasson Dominguez fall into this crowded outfield. I guess I could ask the same thing about Spencer Jones, who is an interesting polarizing figure around the sport. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the comparison I keep, there is a Joey Gallo comparison. He's a tremendous athlete, a big strapping left-hand hitter who apparently can hit the ball about 500 feet, but also swings and misses a lot. The questions about batting average. Do you feel like you have a pulse on who he is and what he might be able to bring?
Well, I would say last year was really encouraging because I think he had lost maybe a little bit of luster the year before, just based on different things, as a prospect. And then last year he goes out and really puts together, from beginning to end, a really excellent minor league season. So the talent's real, the ceiling is real. I would acknowledge the swing and miss that's existed there that can be a concern. I think we talk about things being linear, and I would throw another layer to that is sometimes guys that are really big, that can be a challenge too, and getting those reps and high level experience goes a long way. It's we don't have a ton of 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" hitters over the course of the history of this game. Obviously, Aaron Judge, he's mastered it pretty well. I think of like Richie Sexson and Dave Winfield and these guys. I think Spencer's about 6'5", 6'6", Giancarlo 6'5". So the power is massive. His speed and athleticism is real. I think he's got some plate zone discipline. Can he, shore up some of the swing and miss that exists to really be that impact player? I know he's got a real chance to. I know he's hungry to. He's down here today. He's been down here now for a few weeks, and I like that he is constantly working and making adjustments offensively because, again, for being a big guy, I think those things are critical in your development and as you go, is to ultimately settling in to be because I think if you can figure things out as a large player like that, the leverage and the advantage then you do have is pretty big. But obviously it's a challenge to get there. It's like Randy Johnson, right? When he was a pitcher, right? I know there are real struggles in the minor leagues and early in his career with just his size and figuring out the mechanics and being able to repeat those things. Similar as a hitter when you're large. It's like once it clicks, you got a real advantage. It's hard to make it click.
Yeah, I do point out to people every once in a while that in this 2-month cameo in 2016, Aaron Judge struck out 40% of the time.
Yeah.
And it sounds funny to history now. We weren't sure in spring training 2017 which Aaron, Hicks, or Judge was going to start in right field for the Yankees. And he won the Rookie of the Year and almost won the MVP. And the team went to Game 7 of the ALCS that year.
So 2017 was obviously the year before I got here. So I was still at ESPN. I remember being in spring training and I wanted to see Aaron Judge, who I had heard a lot about, but there were a lot of, different opinions on what he was ultimately going to be. And I think that's worked out pretty well.
That's two Aarons. Can I ask this, Aaron, just a way to wrap up? It's hard to ignore you wearing a UNC hat. Why don't you go ahead and our audience explain why you're wearing a UNC hat, and maybe do you have any insight into the guy who's at the top of that hierarchy, how he's doing?
Yeah, so just obviously I went to USC, so I'm a huge USC fan. But one of my sons is at UNC in his sophomore year. He's on the football staff. He's an offensive assistant, so getting to work under Belichick, so he's in that football world. He loves it. I think, he's a really smart kid with a really bright future, I think. And, obviously getting to work for Bill Belichick in that program, has been pretty cool for him to kind of, started with Mac Brown the year before and survived when Bill came in. And I know he's really grateful for the opportunity, but I'm certainly excited watching his journey too.
Since we're going off script here, I've got one for you. I know you're a huge Eagles fan. Your dad won a championship in Philadelphia. I first knew your dad in Anaheim, but you were hanging around a lot, but you were an Eagles fan. You still are an Eagles fan. What did you? I know you're friendly with the coach, and I'm not the expert that you and Joel are, and Sirianni. I was watching the playoffs. This is something you'd never do, but I know you talked to Sirianni and I assume respect him. I guess after AJ Brown, is that his name? AJ Brown didn't catch a ball. Didn't look like catchable to me, but he ran down the sidelines and yelled at him at that moment. I don't know if it was because of that or what. And explain later. I'm just curious what you thought of your Eagles not repeating and that situation, because you don't do that. You don't ever show up.
Catch. I think it was they were trying to get him off the field for like a punt or so there was a time element to it, and he was yelling at guys to get off the field, and it looked like AJ took some exception, so they had some words or whatever. But that's high level sports. Like that stuff happens every now and then. You butt heads behind the scenes. Not always caught, but it does happen. As far as them not repeating. Yeah, it's I can attest. It's hard to win. It's hard to win. It's
That's
hard to
great.
win big. Little. They had another great defense, and the pieces on offense. Obviously, it was a struggle for them to really put it together consistently offensively this year, and ultimately that got them.
The AJ he has to worry about, John, is Aaron Judge, not AJ Brown. So
Right.
Okay.
and it all starts for Aaron is nice enough to join us. I know he flew down on Monday to Tampa. He's down there for the week before this all begins for real. In what is always a complicated spring training when the WBC is involved, and that your AJ is the captain
Yeah.
of Team USA, so he's going to be gone for a portion. I assume as much as you like him around, you hope he's gone for a long, long time to the end there, and that the U.S. actually wins this year. But Aaron, we do appreciate you taking the time and joining us on the show.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Good to see you. I'll see you. I'll see you soon enough. I'll have my helmet and chin strap on, ready for all your questions.
Thanks, Aaron. All the best.
All right.
It was shocking. The Eagles were so great the year before. They have
We're
all
still
these
on the
great
Eagles
players.
here, John?
It's just shocking. They were so bad on offense this year, having the best running back, two of the best wide receivers, a great quarterback. I don't know.
They had a lineman or two that was kind of in and out of it.
Okay.
It's hard to be great.
We're morphing right into our next
All
show,
right.
football talk with Aaron.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, very good. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Aaron.
Aaron. John and I, of course, thank Aaron Boone for joining us on the show. John, for the final time this offseason, hit or
Very exciting. You made this I put a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah.
I'm always known as the Mariner hater, so I'm going to give him a little praise. Brendan Donovan is a big get for them. I mean, once Rise was going to San Francisco, I think the Red Sox were always looking for a right-handed bat anyway. It kind of was pretty clear. I don't know if it was a fait accompli, but pretty clear he was going to go to Seattle. They did give up a lot in terms of a lot of speedy guys going to St. Louis. One of them came from Tampa, actually, but they gave up Ty Pete, who's a guy who's multi-talented. They gave up Senja, who's the ambidextrous pitcher, but they got another left-handed bat and a guy who fits in any clubhouse, very versatile. Just a terrific guy from all accounts in Donovan. So I'm going to praise the Mariners for doing a good job there.
Yeah. It took 3 months to get it done. They talked a lot. There was, from what I understand, a bunch of permutations to this thing where the Rays were in it, the Rays were out, the Rays were in,
The Rays are always in with Seattle.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. And for all three-team trades, they're always in all the.
I know.
Trades.
They love each other, the Rays, and they're not close to each other geographically, but apparently in life they are.
Well, I hope this, for my hitter error, I'm going to give a hit. I hope this shows up well. This is 101 Lessons from the Dugout. It's our friend Ken Davidoff is a co-author on this. He's our former colleague, my former colleague at the Post. John succeeded him in that job, but John worked with him at Newsday. Ken's one of the best people, human beings, journalists that we work with. He has a new book out. It's called 101 Lessons from the Dugout. It's available in pre-order now on Amazon and as well as Bloomsbury.com, and will go on sale Thursday, February 5th. You can see here, he has a co-author, Harley Ropert. The forward is by David Wright. The book's been endorsed by Reggie Jackson. It's been endorsed by Bernie Williams, Joe Girardi. It's written for young adults, 12 and up. Lessons from the Dugout. It's our friend Ken Davidoff. I could hardly say nicer things about a person, so I'm going to say as nice of things as possible. Please go out and buy this book and support our friend. He's a great guy.
Well, I am 12 and up, so I'm going to have to go out and get the book because unlike you, he is a great guy, but he doesn't send me the books.
Well, how do you know I didn't buy this book?
Because I know you. I know that he sent you the book.
So here's the thing, John, is for all of my friends who write books, no matter if they send it or not, I also go buy it.
That's very nice.
Support them.
But he probably sent you a book.
This one was sent to me.
Yeah, okay, I can tell.
Because it's a pre-order. It's not, but I will buy a book. I always support my friends when they write.
Oh, that's very nice. You could just send them the money.
I'll Venmo them right after this.
Very nice. I second.
Tommy, did I just free advertising to a company?
I would like to say something nice about the book, but I haven't read the book and I haven't gotten it. So I'm sure it's wonderful, though. I do like Ken's awesome, and I hope people buy the book. Just because you said you'll buy one, I'm going to go buy one.
Yes.
If I can find a bookstore. I'm in Florida. You think anybody buys books from, I mean, if it's bad, you can't even find bookstores in New York. You think I can find
John,
one
you
in
think
Florida?
Seattle hates you? You just called Florida illiterate, I think.
Oh, they know. They know.
They know. You
Yeah.
know, okay, great. You know who's a great also is Tommy Hogan. He's our producer. I'm trying to get us out of this, John, before
All
all
right.
this starts. Tommy Hogan produces the show every week. Thank you, Tommy. As always, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, please rate and review us. Follow us there. The New York Post Sports YouTube page. Please give us a view. Again, if you like the show, please support it in that way. I'll give one more hat tip in week 2 to the California Post, californiapost.com, which is off and running. The baseball coverage, which I read in particular by Jack Harris and Dylan Hernandez, has been great. The Lakers are in full bloom, so we're doing great work there as well. We have people covering the Super Bowl out there from us for both entities, the New York and California Post, so please go there. And look, next week, John is going to be in Tampa. I'm going to be in Port St. Lucie, but we're going to keep doing the show, and we hope you continue to listen to us. Thank you.